Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Young, and thank you for joining us today on Thursday. It's our weekly webinar from 1 until 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is actually the last webinar that I'm going to be hosting this year. I can't believe it's already the middle of November. With the holidays coming up and the end of the year obligations that we all have, I thought it would just be better if we didn't have any more webinars after today's, but we'll start up again in January. So mark your calendars for Thursdays from 1 until 1:30 p.m. And today, we actually have somebody who's not in the veterinary industry. I always love to have people outside of our industry come join us and talk to us about services that we may not know about, or even team building experiences, which I think are so very important. So today we have Joe DeRing with us. He's actually a veteran, an infantry officer, and he will talk to us, I'm hoping, a little bit about his history in the Army, and then also how he creates successful and extraordinary teams. And I hope you can take that information and apply it to your teams and your veterinary practices. So I'm just going to hand it over to Joe and let him give us an introduction about himself and then start his presentation. We're a couple minutes behind today because we had technical difficulties, so we'll run a few minutes over. And if you have any questions, like always, just type them in the chat box and I will relay later on. So Joe, it's all yours. Go ahead and thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Great. No, my pleasure, Dr. Young. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'm going to try to get this shared here. There. All right. Can you guys see my slide? Can you see my slide, Dr. Young?
Yes, I can see it.
Fantastic. So once again, my name is Joe DeRing, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk to you and your team about how you can achieve extraordinary results. But let me first start by asking, how many of you believe that your team is currently achieving better than ever results? And you don't have to respond or type your response in. But knowing where you are as a team and ultimately where you want to be is an important step in the process to becoming extraordinary. So using that, you can see really I love this quote: individual talents get magnified many times over through the collective lens of an effective team. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So just a brief introduction. Again, my name is Joe. I am the founder and owner of Empower Adventures. I currently oversee 2 adventure team building operations, one in Middletown, Connecticut, by the name of Empower Leadership Sports. We opened there in 2009. And most recently, we opened here in Northern Virginia. We are Empower Adventures Middleburg down here, and we opened on the property of the Salamander Resort and Spa. I also am a leadership development and team development facilitator and presenter, and I look forward to sharing some insights on extraordinary teams with you today. My experience comes from the U.S. Army, as Dr. Young had alluded to. I spent 8 years as an infantry officer leading infantry platoons through combat. I spent a year and a half part of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003 to 2004, and I spent over a year in Afghanistan as well in 2006 to 2007. So in 2008, I got out of the Army, decided to go into business for myself using the experiences of the Army and the lessons that I had learned in leading soldiers. And so that has brought me to Empower Adventures. I currently reside in the Plains with my wife and 2 kids, and you can find me on Twitter at JoeLeadership9. So this is a picture of my infantry platoon when we were in Iraq in the summer of 2003. I'm located here on the left-hand side of the photo. But this group of people was extraordinary. And I say that because we achieved some extraordinary results, but individually, there wasn't a whole lot that was extraordinary about us. But collectively, with our relationships, with the process and the plan that we had instituted through training, and ultimately our ability to master our roles allowed us to achieve results that were better than ever, and allowed us to really be productive and extraordinary. So that is where most of my leadership experience comes from, and so I'm excited to share some of that with you. Empower Adventures has developed a leadership tool that helps teams communicate. This tool can be used in virtually any setting for any task, and it's really called GRIP. It's an acronym. The purpose of the tool is to get team members aligned on 4 core aspects of accomplishing a task or a project. And so in GRIP, the G stands for goal clarity. And so for this particular presentation, I want to introduce the concept of the extraordinary teams. That's our goal, and expose you to some of the proven tools that can help expedite your personal and professional development. The R in GRIP stands for role clarity, and so I'll be presenting and answering any questions by way of Dr. Young. And your role is to try to be open-minded to learning. The I in GRIP stands for our interactions, and I'd ask that you work to strengthen your focus on the following. Can you bring your best self to your team each day? And do you do that currently? And then try to think of this presentation in the context of your entire team, not just you, not just your closest colleagues, but everybody on your team. And lastly, at the end, let's try to answer the questions. Do I have a grip on what our team is trying to accomplish? And do we have a culture that allows us to give and receive honest feedback? And do we benefit from that feedback? And then lastly, the P in GRIP stands for process, or your plan. And so our process is, continue the introduction here, go through the presentation, and answer any questions at the end. So GRIP is goal clarity, role clarity, standard for your interactions, and then your process or your plan for moving forward. Is your team extraordinary? The ancient Egyptians were certainly extraordinary, but why, would you say? What made them extraordinary? Was it their results? Was it their innovation? The advanced nature of their civilization? I'd say it was probably all of those things, among others. So diving in here, this learning model that I've flipped to, discovery versus security thinking. We use this learning model at the beginning of most of our programs and presentations. Here at Empower, we believe that individuals generally spend most of their time in one of 2 mindsets. They're either in discovery mode or they're in security mode. And in being in discovery mode, that mode allows you to explore and venture out. It allows you to be open to finding what's new out there. Discovery allows you to be open to sharing resources and letting go of past missteps or past struggles. It also allows you to overcome any preconceived notions. Really, discovery helps you to seek what is possible versus the downside. Being in discovery mode means that we don't have to pick one or the other, but we can do both of a scenario. This can be especially helpful in a marriage where you're trying to, you know, please both in my case, the wife, and be able to accomplish what I need or want to accomplish. And so we work to do both. And so security mode, which is the opposite of discovery mode, requires that you protect and defend what is yours. You're not as open-minded or open to what the possibilities are. Security mode is the mode where you hold on to the way it always has been done, or this is the way we were taught. You hear those quotes a lot from people in security mode. And when you're in this mode, you automatically, without thinking, move to make a decision about this or that. It's either or, and don't consider how to make both happen or compromise. Ultimately, when we are in security mode, we don't care about others' perspective. Really, we're only caring about ourselves. And so I think it's fair to say that we all spend quite a bit of time in security mode and not enough time in discovery mode. And making time for discovery thinking is critical to becoming an extraordinary team. Fighting the temptation to marginalize team members and stifle others' perspective and ideas will help your team achieve success across all three dimensions of success, that being results, process, and relationships. And so security versus discovery thinking here. Let's try to move to discovery thinking as we move through this presentation. This slide illustrates the discovery mode between the three sword bearers there, where the person on the right is thinking, wow, we had a great session, we had a great planning day, we had a great activity. How can I share this with the others on our team to make the most of our experience, to make a difference in our organization? And the team, you can see, is saying all for one and one for all, that it's really about making the organization better and not just concerned about credit for one particular person or any individual goals. It's more about the team. So ultimately, extraordinary teams are defined by the following. There's 4 factors. Number 1 is purpose. Does your organization have a driving, passionate purpose that is bigger than just your team? To be an extraordinary team, we need a purpose that helps others and can spread our leadership and goodwill to our surroundings. So, for example, a company that seeks to improve the economic vitality of a community, well, that's a clear sense of a purpose that's bigger than just making money. A veterinarian office that seeks to become a trusted advisor and compassionate partner in the care of a community's animals is bigger than just getting the pets in and getting them out. An adventure center that is committed to empowering individuals through powerful experiences, that's more than just providing an attraction. The second factor that makes teams extraordinary is having clear goals. Goals should not be a secret in any organization. Every employee up and down the chain of command should know what they are working to achieve. Allowing managers and supervisors to play a role in this goal creation creates buy-in and accountability. The third factor here actually at the bottom here is process innovation. Process innovation essentially is where leadership creates a culture of two-way communication up and down the chain of command, where all levels are engaged and empowered. Through open dialogue and culture, in a culture of communication, these leaders are able to encourage and create engagement by the team members. This leads to trusting relationships, which leads to better than ever results. Roles is an extremely important piece of becoming an extraordinary team. Clearly defined individual team member roles and responsibilities drive accountability, and this is the foundation to becoming extraordinary. Every single person has to do their job passionately, day in and day out, to achieve better than ever results. So our 4 factors of becoming extraordinary are having a clear sense of purpose, having clearly defined goals that are measured, having clearly defined roles for each team member, and allowing for process innovation where leaders have a culture of open dialogue where team members can accept and benefit from feedback. So in summary, extraordinary teams exhibit the following: this driving purpose that benefits others. They share a grip, the goals, roles, interactions, and process. Ultimately, these extraordinary teams achieve better than ever results. You're not extraordinary if you're not good. And you outperform the competition. Extraordinary teams measure performance and success in 3 dimensions, with that being results, process, and relationships. And extraordinary teams fight the temptation to marginalize, where they really value the team members, their perspective, their ideas, their opinions. Are there any questions about what I've gone over to this point? Heike, is there anybody have any comments or questions?
Right, nobody is putting anything in the chat box yet, but I have a few questions. Do you want to finish before I ask you, or should I start now?
Yeah, this is a good time.
This is a good time. Okay. So what I see a lot in veterinary clinics, so those people who are on the call right now are going to get a lot of insight from my coaching. I love what you said because it's so important, and I think we're missing a few steps in the practices that I coach, and that's why I coach them, because they have problems, usually communication problems or team problems. They're not working together as a team. And so I love the grip, the clarity on the goals and the clarity on the roles. A lot of times, what I don't see when I get into these practices is that they have a clear job description so that everybody knows their role. You know, you say, okay, you're a receptionist, you're supposed to answer the phone and welcome people into the clinic, but there's a lot more to that. I mean, you have to be really, really specific about job descriptions and what you want people, what you expect of your team members. So I just wanted to focus on that, on the clarity of the goals and the clarity of the roles. And that goes back to the purpose. You know, what is your purpose as a veterinary clinic? Just because you're a vet clinic, and we've talked about this in the past, doesn't mean that your only purpose is to provide the best possible care for animals. Your purpose has to be bigger than that. It has to distinguish you. You have to be unique compared to the next vet clinic. Otherwise, why would I go to you when I can go down, you know, to the vet who's in walking distance from my house? So one of the questions that I had was actually about the inner actions, you said, be your best self every day. And that's tough to do. So, for leaders, I think as a leader, we have the natural inclination to do some self-improvement outside of work. But what about the team members who let's just say, live from paycheck to paycheck? I think that's a totally different mindset. So how do you encourage them to be their best self every day?
It's really about having the ability to develop your own personal feelings on your mission, your goals personally and professionally, and being able to take it one bite at a time, as they say. There are so many different dynamics in an office. There are so many outside influences and inside influences that affect our daily job, that it's hard to always be on your A game. But if you're taking it one step at a time, if you're taking it one part of the day at a time and trying to do your very best in that part of the day and win that part of the day for you, then you can measure yourself by parcels of the day versus trying to eat the elephant all in one bite, as they say. So I would suggest, and this is what we talk about with our clients and even within our own team, is trying to manage your day one segment at a time and winning that segment. If you can win that segment, then you're doing great and you can move on to the next segment. And if you can put 100% into that next segment, you'll probably do okay in that one too. And so moving from one segment at a time and blocking your time throughout your day so that you're not just sitting there not knowing what you're supposed to do, but having a defined purpose and a defined task to really have that focused time and energy on that task. And when you've kind of scheduled your next task, that you move on, that you don't get bogged down or distracted. So, everybody has their own ways of staying motivated, of staying clear, in terms of what their purpose is. Finding what's best for you, I think, is a process and one worth going through.
Yeah. So that's great. I love that, one step at a time. The other thing that you said was develop your own personal goals. And so I think a lot of times when I get into a clinic and I speak with a practice owner, actually, I usually start with a practice manager, and I ask them about their vision. They definitely have a vision of where they want to be a year from now. Let's just do it a year because it's easier than to think 5 or 10 years from now. So as you think about where, as a practice manager, you want to be a year from now, and then I ask the practice owner, where do you want to be a year from now? And that's great. I have that information then to start coaching. What I find a lot of times is that we don't go the extra step and ask the individual employees, what is your vision? Where do you see yourself a year from now? What do you want to accomplish in this clinic? So I think if you take that and really listen to them and their goals, then you can incorporate those goals into your motivation and your inspiration, and then the tasks to get that person there. Because you'd be surprised that everybody has a vision. They don't just come to your clinic and start working because of the paycheck. They could go and do that at McDonald's. They're there because they have an idea of where they see themselves within your clinic or any business. So I love that. And then the other thing, I know we're running out of time, but the other question that I have, you mentioned interactions and giving and receiving feedback. And I think that's become very difficult for us in general to ask for feedback, because then you open yourself up to being criticized, and it becomes very emotional. Even when you're ready for feedback, you receive it, and it's, you've done your best. You think that you've done your best, and you want the other person to say, you're wonderful, but that's really not effective feedback because you want to grow from the feedback that you receive. So I wanted to know how you teach people to give and receive feedback.
It's a great question. My rule of thumb is that if you are not prepared to deal with the constructive criticism, then you need to coach yourself into preparing yourself. Really, you have to, from a leadership perspective, you have to be ready to look at yourself as imperfect. And as soon as you're comfortable with your imperfections and vulnerabilities, then you can open yourself up as a leader to your colleagues and to your coworkers, and in receiving their feedback becomes more beneficial and productive than hurtful in your mind. If you are in that security mode where you cannot open your mind up to hearing what others have to say, then it's going to come across the wrong way. And so in leadership, we have to be vulnerable in front of our teams.
Oh my gosh. Sorry about that. Are you still there?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. So I love that. I love the fact that go into receiving feedback, understanding that we're not perfect and we are vulnerable, and it is going to feel uncomfortable. And so just to give people a little bit of insight of what I always recommend, and I don't know if that's something that you do, but to start people to get ready to ask for feedback and also be okay with giving feedback, is I do the on a scale of 1 to 10 rule. So for instance, when I'm done with a coaching call, I will say at the end, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate today's coaching call? And if I don't get a 10, which obviously happens, and that's good. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. So when I get a 7 or an 8 or a 9, then I just say, great, thank you for that. What could I have done to have made it a 10? And then when you ask for feedback, you just have to be quiet. You have to take in whatever you're receiving. And in the beginning, that might be a little bit difficult because you want to defend why you did what you did. But if you can just be quiet and quiet your mind and be open to the discovery phase that Joe was talking about, eventually it's going to generate so much information from you that you can take and be very productive with. So the other thing that you said about the mindset, discovery versus security, you said, in a security mindset, we don't care as much about others as we should. And one of the things that popped into my mind, and I just want to throw that out at everybody who's on the call, who works in the veterinary field or who works with animals. Sometimes we get into the profession or the industry because we want to help animals, and we care more about the animals than we care about the people that are attached to them. And so when sometimes I think we care too much about the animals and we forget that it's really the people that we need to be open to, have an open mindset towards. So that, I think, is not just for your clients, but also the employees who work for you. Why did they work for you? Why did they come to your clinic? And not because, in the veterinary industry, we don't make a lot of money. People work for low wages. And why did they choose you and not a higher paying job? And that goes back to having the purpose that Joe was talking about. So I think those are all the questions that I have. I'm looking, I don't see anybody writing anything in the chat box. So if you want to wrap it up or give me your thoughts on any of this, that'd be great, Joe. We have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Dr. Young. So just in conclusion, you know, Empowered Ventures is all about empowering teams and individuals to get outside of their comfort zones, to build relationships, to create strong process or plans so that ultimately results, extraordinary results will come from those. So they're all intertwined, whether it's relationships, results, process. To do it well and to sustain success, you have to cultivate and lead in all three of those aspects. And so that's what we do at Empowered Ventures. So if you're interested, look us up on empoweredventures.com, or we're also on Facebook at Empowered Ventures Middleburg.
Excellent. I just love that. Thank you so much, Joe. And yes, for anybody in the Northern Virginia area, it should be very possible for you to get in touch with Joe and come out to Middleburg to the Salamander Resort and go through the empowerment adventure course. I think that's going to be really helpful for teams and anybody outside of the state of Virginia. How cool would that be as a Christmas bonus for your team? So thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping that we can have you on again sometime next year to just present you to some more people out there, because what you have to teach is so valuable. And of course, I'm totally on board with everything that you said today. And I would love to take it in the direction of veterinary industry just a little bit more. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Everybody, I'll see you back in January, the first Thursday in January. I don't even know what that is, but I'll send you an email. And please be, feel free to share those emails with anybody else in the veterinary industry. I'd love to increase the mailing list and get these webinars out to more people next year. So have a great Thanksgiving and a wonderful Christmas, and I'll see you in January. Bye-bye.